EU foreign ministers condemned China's ambassador to France over comments he made on the sovereignty of ex-Soviet states.
Russia is accused of destroying the UN Charter at the first session of the Security Council since it took over the presidency.
9 EU leaders say they want to boost wind power generation in the North Sea, make it the world's largest power plant.
Police in Germany use a drill to remove an activist glued to a road at a climate protest in Berlin. Clashes with police as one of Spain's leading Civil War-era fascist leaders' remains are transferred to a Madrid cemetery.
Uproar in European capitals after comments by China's ambassador to France caused outrage when EU foreign ministers met in Luxembourg on Monday. In a TV interview last Friday, Beijing's envoy appeared to question the sovereignty of Ukraine and other ex-Soviet states, which ruffled some feathers, especially in the Baltic countries.
This is clear that the Baltic states and Estonia, we are an independent sovereign country, we are a member of the European Union, NATO, but I hope that there will be explanation.
We are not post-Soviet countries, we were the countries that were illegally occupied by the Soviet Union.
China later walked back its envoy's remarks, but this diplomatic controversy comes at a very delicate moment in EU-China relations, given that Brussels is unhappy about Beijing's refusal to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. China is promoting its own peace in the war, which is seen as biased and selective by Europe.
Recently, some ideas regarding peace were floated by China and also by Brazil. For a credible, for a honest peace efforts, one needs to talk to Kiev and to go there, to see the aggression through their eyes and through the eyes of those who are being bombed.
The EU's top diplomat expressed confidence that the bloc would finalise a plan within days to buy ammunition for Ukraine after Kiev expressed frustration at wrangling among EU member states. Artillery rounds, particularly 155mm shells, have become critical to the conflict as Ukrainian and Russian forces wage an intense war of attrition. Officials in Kiev say they're burning through more rounds than its allies can currently produce.
Russia has been accused of cynicism at the first session of the United Nations Security Council since Moscow took over the presidency of the organisation. The meeting heard that the world is in a state of crisis, unprecedented since the foundation of the UN in 1945.
Tensions between major powers are at an historic high. So are the risks of conflict through misadventure or miscalculation. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in violation of the United Nations Charter and international law, is causing massive suffering and devastation to the country and its people, and adding to the global economic dislocation triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic.
But Russia had a completely different take.
Мы вновь, как и в годы холодной войны, подошли к опасной, а может быть еще более опасной черте. Ситуация усугубляется утратой веры в многосторонность, когда финансово-экономическая агрессия Запада разрушает блага глобализации, когда Вашингтон и его союзники отказываются от дипломатии и требуют выяснения отношений на поле боя. Все это в стенах ООН, созданной для предотвращения ужасов войны.
Accusing Moscow of cynicism, the head of the EU delegation said that by calling the meeting, Russia was trying to portray itself as a defender of the UN Charter, but that nothing could be further from the truth. Oleg Skog accused Russia of destroying while other nations build.
The Council of Europe paid tribute on Monday to Kremlin critic Vladimir Kara-Murza, who was sentenced last week to 25 years in prison, and to other Russian and Belarusian political prisoners. Kara-Murza's wife was present at the event, along with the President and members of the Parliamentary Assembly.
Thank you for giving me this amazing platform so that I could continue making sure that my husband's voice is heard, despite all odds, because this is what the regime wants to do. It wants to silence these voices, and I will not let that happen.
Russian opposition leader Kara-Murza was sentenced in April by a Moscow court to 25 years in a maximum security prison on charges of treason, spreading fake news about the Russian army and leading a, quote, undesirable organization.
Outlining the current Russian order of battle in Ukraine, the Institute for the Study of War says Russian forces are operating in decentralized and largely degraded formations throughout the theater. And the current pattern of deployment suggests that most available units are already online and engaged in either offensive or defensive operations. The current Russian pattern of commitment around Bakhmut suggests that the Russian military leadership is increasingly prioritizing the completion of the capture of the city before the start of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, if possible. The Wagner Group continues to take heavy losses. It may well be able to complete seizure of the city at some point. Sustaining Wagner's advance beyond its culmination required the Russian Ministry of Defense to commit airborne forces formations on the northern and southwestern flanks to allow Wagner to concentrate almost entirely on the urban fight. In a rather stark contrast, the Russian grouping in Kherson region is likely the most disorganized and undermanned in the entire theater. Russian elements there have been reconstituted and redeployed after the Russian withdrawal from the west bank of Kherson region in November. The Institute for the Study of War says it is highly likely that the remaining grouping on the east bank is mainly comprised of badly under-strength remnants of mainly mobilized units. Over the weekend, the think tank said Russian mill bloggers have provided enough geolocated footage and textual reports to confirm that Ukrainian forces have established positions in east bank of Kherson region, though it's unclear at what scale or with what intentions. Ukraine Southern Command spokesperson Natalia Humenyuk said she could not confirm or reject the report since, quote, the conditions of a military operation require silence until it is safe enough for Ukrainian military.
Boosting wind power generation in the North Sea and making it the world's biggest power plant. This is the ultimate goal of the leaders and energy ministers of 9 countries with North Sea coastlines, plus Luxembourg, who gathered in the Belgian port of Ostend. The joint goal is to boost offshore wind power generation to 120 gigawatts by 2030, from just 30 gigawatts now and at least 300 gigawatts by the middle of the century. They all stress the urgency of reaching this goal as soon as possible.
The main topic here is not so much new commitments. The main topic is how do we get it to action? And that means that we need to standardize, we need to work better together, we need to synchronize the supply chains much better.
Funding and getting the project done through own EU sources are among the main challenges. China currently dominates the supply chain of critical components in the sector like batteries, and the US is heavily subsidizing green investments to boost the sector for itself.
The potential we have in North Sea in terms of offshore wind is huge. It is the best quality offshore wind in the world. And the amount of potential we have is enough to power current Europe electricity demand by 6 times. There's a huge potential there.
While the industry says the procedure for permits is too long when it comes to wind energy investments, the EU says it will make it easier so that they reach the renewable energy target of 42.5% of its energy mix by 2030.
D'abord, il signifie la capacité à produire tous ensemble de l'énergie décarbonée avec ce grand plan d'éolien offshore que nous annonçons et auquel nous contribuerons tous. Ensuite, il signifie notre volonté aussi de bâtir une filière qui produit justement ces fermes éoliennes offshore en Europe. La France y est très engagée.
The North Sea Summit was the second of its kind. After the 4 countries in its inaugural gathering last year, Belgium, Denmark, Germany and the Netherlands, decided it was necessary to broaden cooperation. As the North Sea is relatively shallow, turbines can be installed fairly easily and in great number, with France aiming to have 40 gigawatts in offshore output by 2050.
Despite the ambitious energy targets set by the new group of leaders that met here in the coastal city of Ostend in Belgium, representatives of the industry are quite skeptical when it comes to reality. They warned that European industry is not large enough to deliver the 9 leaders' plans and that more investments are needed in manufacturing capacity and key infrastructure such as grids and ports that require billions of euros. At the same time, they say that governments should support new skilling programs so that offshore wind workforce grows from 80,000 today to 250,000 by 2030. Efi Koutsakosta for Euronews in Ostende.
Police in Germany used drills and a crowbar to free a climate activist in Berlin after he glued his hand to a road during a nationwide protest on Monday. The man had used a special type of superglue that couldn't be dissolved using olive or sunflower oil. It took officers more than an hour to remove him from the scene. The protester was one of many campaigners who staged actions across the country on Monday, demanding the government do more to tackle climate change. The police said several roads leading to the city centre were blocked. Spanish police clashed with supporters of General Franco's former right-wing dictatorship on Monday after they broke through a security cordon outside the San Isidro cemetery in Madrid. The site is to become the final resting place of the remains of the founder of Spain's fascist Falange Española party, José Antonio Primo de Rivera. He endorsed the Spanish nationalist military coup against the Republic in 1936, which led to the Civil War and ultimately the dictatorship of Franco. He was, and still is, revered as a martyr by nationalists. Before the war, he was sentenced to death for conspiracy and military rebellion and subsequently executed. Earlier, his family exhumed his remains from their original burial site in the Valley of the Fallen near the capital. In October 2022, the site was renamed the Valley of the Cuelgamuros under contentious legislation.